Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for another edition of the Twilight Q&A. Tonight, we'll be talking about farmers markets and how to operate in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to first thank our guest speakers that will be joining us. We have Tasha Kennard, Amy Tavlin, and Casey Hare may be joining us. They are all market managers and are involved with the Tennessee Association of Farmers Markets and have assisted us with similar webinars in the past. We'll be recording this webinar to be posted on our website and on YouTube later if you ever miss anything and need to go back and catch any of it. I do ask that because we are recording this, that you keep your videos turned off and your microphones muted so that there is no background noise accidentally captured in the recording, and that we can keep audio quality strong for the presenter. Just a couple of disclaimers. The information that is being presented tonight is for educational purposes only and does not constitute any legal or medical advice. The specific products and services that may be referenced tonight are for informational purposes only and does not indicate endorsement of those products. Like I mentioned, we have 3 speakers that will be assisting us tonight that will be providing input of how their markets have been operating in the past, as well as kind of an outlook of going forward. I also encourage you to ask any questions that you may have of any of these speakers or myself or any of the University of Tennessee specialists that we have on the call tonight, as well as several members from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture who are as well present. So if you have any questions related to University of Tennessee specialists, Tennessee Department of Agriculture, or the guest speakers tonight, we will be more than happy to answer those questions if you would just type them into the chat box, which you can find on the control panel. There should be an option to see the chat box. You can open it up there and just type in any questions that you may have. And with that, Tasha, if you're ready, I will allow you to begin and you can introduce yourself a little further.
Thank you, Jared. This is Tasha Kennard. I'm the Executive Director of the Nashville Farmers Market. We have been operating in the city of Nashville since the mid-1800s. We've been at our current facility for 25 years. This is actually our 25th anniversary of being at our Rosa Parks facility in the urban core of Nashville. We also operate 2 neighborhood markets, one on the Vanderbilt Medical Center campus and one in partnership with Conexion Americas, which has a campus off of Nolensville Road serving a large immigrant population. So we're going to be walking you through some slides here today that talk about what we've been doing for the past 8 weeks and then what we're preparing to do tomorrow morning. And I'm likely not going to hit every single detail. This presentation is kind of part of a larger training document that we've developed for our farmers market community. We're not really, I don't mean this in any odd way, but we're not your regular farmers market. You know, we are a public market with a food hall, a garden center, and farm sheds. We operate daily. We see well over 10,000 visitors a week at our facility. So as you might imagine, a facility like ours really has to take a lot of planning and precautions to heart and into our implementation of our operations as we're dealing with social distancing and also beginning to adapt to the phase 1 opening of metro government. So let's just kind of jump in and I'll tell you what we've been doing. Jared, if you just want to advance forward a little bit. So the city of Nashville, we're part of Metro Nashville government. We lease our market property from the state of Tennessee, but we're all city of Nashville employees. And with that being said, we've kind of had to deal with both outlooks on how to operate within a COVID environment. While the state of Tennessee has been advancing a bit faster in 89 counties, we've had to work within the regulations and the requirements of the city of Nashville. We're one of the counties that has its own regional health department. While they're following all the required CDC guidelines and the state Tennessee pledge guidelines, they've also implemented a variety of additional phases and guidelines for businesses to follow as we reopen. And we can push forward there, Jared. Kind of get to the meat of what we're doing. So what we've been doing, Nashville entered a safer at home order in mid-March. And being as how we are part of Metro government, we were given a bit of a heads up on that just a few days. We closed the second Sunday of March at 6 p.m. and we'll be reopening our facility this Friday, May 15th at 8 a.m. And during that 8-week period, we operated a drive-through market. And what this drive-through market did was it really enabled us to continue to operate as an essential service, but abide by all of our governmental operating requirements. You'll see a picture here that shows our customers stayed in their vehicles the entire time. You'll see one of our merchants in the distance with a mask on. This is not the typical operation of our market. This drive-through market took place in the parking lot where our customers typically park to come into our farm shed and market house space. We closed off our entire facility so that it was inaccessible unless someone needed to park and go in and use the restroom, or one of our merchants needed to go in and wash their hands or go to the restroom. So our entire facility for 8 weeks was closed. We allowed our merchant community that typically operates in the farm sheds to operate as a drive-through. We had as few as 12 our first week and as many as 38 last week, vendors participating in the drive-through model. We included some of our market house restaurants and shops, and I know that may not be pertinent to many of you on the call today, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. But it was interesting to watch those market house restaurants and shops develop stronger relationships with our farmers and our food artisans on how they could incorporate their products into their product offering for curbside delivery, and really connect with the customer base that was there to support the farmers and the artisans. On the next slide, we're going to kind of just quickly demonstrate a few other things that we've been doing with the drive-through market operations. This was a Saturday only event. We are typically open daily, and we dropped down to the bare bones for the past 8 weeks, and we only did this on Saturday. After 2 weeks, we realized that we weren't going to be able to really process the amount of cars that were coming unless we did some sort of early bird access. So from the very beginning, we asked our merchant community to promote pre-order and curbside delivery options to their customer base. And we did the same thing for them. We created a whole new section on our website that promoted curbside and on-farm and home delivery programs. For the first time in our history, we actually listed the cell phone numbers and direct email addresses to each one of our merchants, trying to get the community to simply contact them so that they could continue to support them. Whereas in the past, we've really looked at our facility as being that conduit for connection. So we broke down that barrier and created that direct communication. For anybody that pre-ordered, we asked our farmers to give them an early bird pass for access to the market before we opened to the public. And throughout that 8 weeks, we saw as few as 30 cars coming in between the 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. period in the first 2 weeks, to last week, over 120 cars came in before we opened to the public at 9 a.m. And what that really allowed us to do is it allowed us to process more vehicles and serve more customers between that 3-hour period of 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That was a big adjustment for our vendors. Our vendors are a bit spoiled. They're used to being under a shed with water access and electrical access and indoor restrooms and a wide number of hours for operation. We open up typically at 8 a.m. and close at 4 p.m. So processing customers in just a 3-hour period took a lot for all of us to get used to. Again, we did the weekly pre-order call to action. All of our staff, where we typically rotate throughout the week to staff our market, we required all of our staff to work the drive-through operations, which are only 3 full-time employees. And then we increased our security services. We do have full-time 24/7 security management on our property. And we typically only have 2 officers there at any given time. And we increased that anywhere between 4 to 6. And in the beginning, we were doing 4 officers to help us with traffic control. And in the end, as we entered into the month of May, we all know that there's a light bulb that goes off the 1st of May. People get excited about strawberries. They get excited about farmers markets. It's the time period when a lot of the community farmers markets began to operate or expand their hours. And we saw a drastic increase in the traffic at our market the last 2 weeks that required us to bring in additional personnel to help out with that. We have developed a full array of signage for a drive-through market. It's very simple. We didn't spend a lot of money on it. We already had A-frames at our market that we use for promotional materials on premises. So we just repurposed those A-frames and we slotted in signage. We tried to keep our signage very positive, but clear at the same time. So while some of the signs were directive about where to enter and how to pull to the left to pack an order or pull to the right to pass, we also created signage that was uplifting and optimistic, encouraging podcasts, encouraging people to jam out in their cars while they were going through the drive-through, asking people to smile, thanking them for being there. We recognize that this was a really difficult and continues to be a really difficult time for all of us. And so we wanted it to be a joyful and uplifting experience. We did a weekly wrap up to the community and merchants every Saturday night to our community. We would send it out in our community newsletter that goes out each week, as well as post on social media. And to our merchant community, we would wrap up results of the drive-through and kind of work through any kinks that we saw that week in an email that we call the 411, and it goes out to everybody each week. We did require and will continue to require masks to be worn at our market, as well as gloves. We did not allow any walk-ups or walk-through the drive-through market. We were very strict about that. Anybody that showed up in some sort of transportation, if it was a bike, a motorcycle, or a vehicle, we allowed them to travel through the drive-through. But if they showed up on foot, we did ask them what they needed, and then one of our staff members would assist them with going to that merchant and either picking up their pre-order or processing that payment for them. We had to kind of create halfway through, and I didn't mention this on the slide, but halfway through, we came to the realization that a lot of our older customers that maybe weren't paying attention to our website or our media relations or even our social media, they were quite surprised when they would get to the market. And so we created, after the second week, an ambassador program where the staff spent most of our time going around and checking in with every single vehicle that entered our site. We all wore masks and gloves. We created a merchant map of our drive-through that showed the flow of traffic and each one of the vendors that was there that day. And then we went ahead and let our customers know, what was the status? Were we out of strawberries? Did we still have some left? Were the turnip greens still available? Was their favorite vendor in the drive-through? Whatever it may be. And oftentimes we would find an individual that would get quite overwhelmed with the process. So we created a park off zone where we could pull cars in for individuals that really couldn't handle or understand the drive-through process. And our staff would service those vehicles by running back and forth and getting what they needed. And that was definitely going above and beyond. But we wanted to make sure that our customers were happy and that our merchants felt protected and supported at the same time. One of the biggest hurdles we've had as an organization is transitioning our merchants to prepay and contactless experiences. Many of our farmers and our food artisans did not have e-commerce apps or websites that they could very quickly pivot to. So we've spent the last 8 weeks helping them find resources to do that through Clover or Square or Shopify. And you'll see later on in our slides a solution that we're bringing to our whole market next week. I think the next few slides might just show you a few images of what we've got going on. I don't want to take up too much time. There's a little video link in there. You can see some photography. All this is posted on our social media. So if you're interested in kind of seeing it as it occurred as a drive-through, check out our Instagram and our Facebook sites. And there's a great video that my pal Casey Hare shot our first week. She actually, she's the director of the Nolensville Farmers Market. And she came out our first week and really gave us feedback as a consumer and gathered feedback for how she and her husband developed a drive-through model for their opening of the Nolensville Farmers Market, which I'm sure she'll talk about later. Starting tomorrow, we're reopening as a walk-through market. The Safer at Home order has lifted in Nashville. We've also reached our capacity as a drive-through market in terms of the number of cars we can process and the number of merchants that we desire to support. So we've spent the last 4 weeks preparing for tomorrow. And we still feel like we're going to be tidying up loose ends as we go because none of us really know what is going to occur. We can only hope for the best, but we're prepared. Here are some things we've done. We've created a single entrance and exit. We do have a gate that surrounds our outdoor areas. Typically, those gates have pedestrian entrances all along it where people can come and go as they please and enter the sheds and the garden center at multiple points. We've streamlined that to a single entrance and exit. We'll have a security officer there who will be managing our capacity throughout the day. We're going to allow in no more than 100 customers at any given time. What that does is it keeps us in compliance with the capacity requirements for retailers in Nashville. We had to take our square footage and the amount of employees and vendors we would have there at any given time, and then create a safe number that we could also manage on our premises with social distancing. So we're going to start with 100. And we're going to see how that goes. If we feel like we can manage that number upwards, we can go up as high as 250 per the guidelines in phase 1. So we'll just kind of take it one day at a time. You'll see some photos later on of our crowd control barriers, our one-way shopping and line markers. We're upgrading all of our existing water fountains to contactless water fountains. All of our restroom dispensers have been upgraded to contactless dispensers, and they already had contactless hand dryers. We've added sanitizer stations throughout our entire property. We had a hard time sourcing sanitizer and stands, and so we went to one of our farmers who's a great woodworker. He built 12 stands for us within 48 hours. We went to one of the distilleries in town that's not able to make their distilled whiskey and liquor right now, and they made us hand sanitizer. So we really tried to get creative in how we could use the resources and also promote a locally made product with our health and safety actions. Something that's not really pertinent to the farm sheds, we actually had all of our floors sealed inside of our interior part of the facility. We're automating our doors. Right now, we've had to remove all of our seating, and then, of course, we got hit by a tornado, so we don't need to talk about that. But we've been taking advantage of these 8 weeks to do our build back project on an expedited timeline. These are the 4 phases. Phase 1 and 2 are most critical, making sure we get it right. Phase 1 starts tomorrow, where we open up the outdoor areas. Phase 2 will start June 1st, where we will add our market house restaurants and shops and reopen our interior space. Phase 3, we're allowed to increase our capacity. And then phase 4, we're allowed to go into full capacity. Based on the timeline, we believe we'll be at phase 4 by July 1st. And so we're just tracking along with Metro's phased plan approach. Some of these things I've already touched on, but I'll just kind of hit those that I haven't. We've created a whole slew of market operations. These are guidelines that we've posted that will be enforced. You'll see samples of those materials here in a minute. In order to get our merchants prepared, we created a training document. Many of the slides you're seeing today are part of that training document. We created an online form that's hosted on our website that has the training document and a form for our merchants to toggle through, which basically allows them to recognize and agree to the terms of our new guidelines. This allows us to turn in one plan to our health department for all of the merchants that participate, whether they're a restaurant, a retailer, or a farmer at our property. It also gives us a good sense of their readiness to operate within these new guidelines. We all know that we're managing a community of businesses, but as a market, we're responsible for their actions. And so this form really helped us discern who was ready and gave the merchants an opportunity to tell us if they had concerns or if they needed to take more time before they returned to the market. We've already talked about one way and our entrance. We did mark lines throughout our property that anywhere where there's a line queue that will form around a vendor, there's social distancing lines marked on the floor. We've done them with tape for these first few weeks, and then as we get acclimated to this and see what works and what doesn't work, we'll then look towards a more permanent paint option so that it's not causing us so much ongoing maintenance with tape. We're keeping our restrooms open. We've got new signage about frequent hand washing and safety in our restrooms. We've set up our merchants with a 5-foot setback on all their booths that will allow wider aisles. That's something that we learned from the Franklin Farmers Market. I'm sure Amy's going to talk about that a little bit, but they've really been promoting their open air nature and their wide aisles. I'll pick on her a little bit. They do say they have the widest shopping aisles in Tennessee. I might give her a run for her money starting tomorrow, but we're trying to make sure that we can maximize the space for our customers. And this is something that we're seeing with public markets all over the country. Eastern Market has put up wonderful signage about keeping your distance while you're gathering at their market. And so we're trying to keep it positive, but also safe at the same time. And we can kind of skip forward a little bit more. As we skip forward, I'll tell you the last bullet on that slide said an incident response plan. In the city of Nashville, we're not allowed to reopen unless we have a documented incident response plan. So we had to develop that for our facility as to what would occur if we had a positive case of an employee, a merchant, or a customer. We've done that. If anybody wants that offline, shoot me an email. I'm happy to send it. It was a pretty simple document, and it demonstrates the type of cleaning protocols and notification protocols that we're required to follow. Talked a little bit earlier about crowd control, the number of people in and out. We are also establishing a senior hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. for our customers that are 65 plus. We have a very large, older crowd that we're trying to give them an opportunity to get in and out quickly. One of the things you won't see in these slides, but we added kind of last minute, was we've created 12 new parking spaces throughout the facility. My husband actually did this today. We put up pre-order and curbside parking signage in parking slots that are right up next to the farm shed, so that our customers that pre-order or even our older customers that need to park closer, they can have quick access in and out of our facility. We can just jump forward because I don't want to take too much time. Here's some examples of guidelines and signage that we've created. We scoured farmers markets from across the country over the past 2 months to try to see what people were doing. We've set in on every farmers market coalition and intense call and CPA call and talk to our ag department. We're trying to use all the best practices. If anybody wants any of this, our designer is happy to send you over the files. You can pop my logo out of it and put yours in there and put your website on it. This is a little more than what a lot of farmers markets in our community are promoting. And we understand that it seems more complicated than what other markets may be employing, but we're a public space that's not just a farmer's market, but also a restaurant community. So we have to go a few steps ahead of a market that might be operating in a park. I wish it could be simpler. We're also trying to really push the contactless and curbside. This slide, you'll see the one-way traffic lanes. We're utilizing these crowd control gates, and we've taped down arrows and as well as X's on our floor in our booth areas where customers are allowed to stand as they check out. We've put signage all throughout the property with our guidelines as well as thank you signage because we know that this experience is changing tremendously for everybody, and it's frustrating. Everything that we're all going through right now is challenging. So we want to make sure we maintain a really positive vibe and appreciative conversation with our customers. This is an example of those stanchions that one of our farmers built. We found these at Turnip Truck. We took a picture of it. We sent it to the farmer. He did it. If anybody needs them, let me know. I'm sure he'll build more. The picture to the right is an example of what our merchants looks like in the drive-through and what they're going to look like as they reopen. You'll see our merchants wearing a mask. You'll see them wearing disposable gloves. You know, that's just something that we're going to ask everybody to do. Disposable gloves are not mandated by our health department. They're not mandated by the Nashville Farmers Market, but we are encouraging it. Otherwise, we're asking our customers, if they're not our customers, our merchants, if they're not comfortable wearing gloves or they have any kind of concern about that, they have to sanitize their hands in between each exchange and interaction with a customer. If they're wearing gloves, they need to be able to dispose of the gloves properly and change out those gloves in between each exchange or interaction with a customer. So if you come visit our market this weekend, you'll likely notice that more of them are not wearing gloves and they're using the sanitizer. We did provide free sanitizer to every single one of our merchants. We had a craft distillery give us 100 bottles of hand sanitizer. So everybody's got their own pump at their booth. I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is part of the training document. These are things that we're requiring our merchants to adhere to. They have to turn in their form. If they don't turn it in, there's no booth. We're being clear and kind about that. We are requiring temperature checks and wellness assessments each day. That's a requirement in Metro Nashville. They have to notify us if they have a confirmed case. They need to be positive cooperative. We've got a couple people that like to bring small infants to the market while they're working in their booth. We're asking them not to do that right now. We've hit the gloves, the social distancing. And then the rest of it is really about how they set up, which we're going to go through in a slide here in a minute. We can kind of skip through. This is the Metro self-assessment process. It's really pertinent city by city. So I would encourage anybody that if your city's requiring a self-assessment for any retail operation to open, make sure you know what that is, and that you're communicating that to your merchant community so that they can be prepared for it. The next slide will show a pre-work screen requirement. It has gone from being recommended to being required since I developed this slide. So this is now something that everyone has to do, at least for the first 2 phases of reopening. So of course I had to order a bunch of scanner thermometers this week. That was fun. All right, we can jump forward a little bit more. We've got new cleaning protocols for our merchant community and for the folks that help us clean and sanitize our facility. We didn't make these up. These are all CDC guidelines and recommendations. They're available on the CDC website. If you're responsible for cleaning the facility that you rent or that you utilize, I highly recommend that you check out the COVID cleaning protocols, or just copy and implement what's on this page. All right. We can go to the next one. We gave all of our merchants a checklist of making sure that they have their PPE supplies, their cleaning supplies, all their processes. And this is the fun stuff. We gave them examples of how to modify their booth setup. We eliminated U-shape booths and customer entry into the booth. We use this image as an example of what we want to see and what we can't see. So we want to see great visual signage. We want to see a booth set back 5 feet, which this booth is from our aisleway. And then things that we can't see anymore, that we can't allow right now, is you see that little box where the bags and the jams and the books are hanging out. We can't do that. Even though that casework is built into their booth, we're asking all of our merchants to eliminate customer contact with their products for these next couple of weeks. So we're asking everybody to shop with their eyes and not with their hands. So if you come to our market, you might see some areas that are not merchandised right now because they're really trying to get their customers to let them as the merchant fulfill their order. We can jump forward a little bit. This just kind of goes over what we're asking them to do in terms of setting up their booth. We deal with over 200 different merchants at any given time. We find that we have to be really, really clear with them and help them kind of figure out how to be creative within their space. So, you guys will have to create these guidelines for yourself. But I think the biggest things is making sure you've got wide shopping areas, that you're showing where, if you've got a physical property, where your line management queues are, and then eliminating that customer entry so that the vendors can serve the customers in a more contactless way. And then the final thing would be pre-packaging as much as possible, whether it's a pre-order or bagging the products up in bundle form, so that again, you're eliminating that customer contact. All right, I'm wrapping up quick, I promise, Jared. This is food trucks and prepared food. We're treating them like restaurants, and we're gonna let 2 in a day. We normally let in 4. We've knocked it down to 2 just to be more manageable, and they've got to follow line queues as well, and no seating. All right, let's jump ahead again. We've shifted our hours of operation. We're typically very strict on our vendors staying from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We've now shifted to an 8 a.m. to sellout for our farm shed area. We're finding during our drive-through market, demand is really high right now for produce and proteins, as well as dairy products. So our merchants are selling out faster than they ever have. And we don't want them up there wasting their time if they've sold out a product, because we have a rule in place that requires them to be there until 4. So I would just encourage everybody to, think about things that you can relax that might be of benefit to your farmers as you're getting ready to reopen. We have a Fresh Bucks program. This is part of our SNAP education and EBT services at the market. Our Friends of group sponsors this program. They're actually increasing their sponsorship this year from $5,000 to $10,000 because we've seen such an increase in the amount of people that want to utilize this program over the past 8 weeks. We work with local community organizations to make people aware of this program, and we work hand in hand with our farmers to become EBT retailers. I think the next slide is really about food waste. We've spent a lot of time over the last 8 weeks trying to map our farmers to school districts, hospitals, nonprofit organizations that are working on hunger relief, and religious organizations, to try to ensure that should we see a decline in demand, we don't want to be on the news for dumping the milk. We want to make sure that the milk gets to the best possible place to be used for somebody that needs it. And so find places in your community that you can connect your farmers to. We also have a lot of farmers that rely on the restaurant industry for most of their sales. For instance, I've got 5 farmers that immediately lost 70% of their sales when restaurants closed down in Nashville. And very quickly, we helped them pivot to Second Harvest Food Bank and the Nashville Food Project. While it wasn't the same volume, and they also discounted their products because of the mission of those organizations, it allowed them not to waste product and still get a sale for what they had spent their time growing and cultivating. All right, we can jump through e-commerce. Definitely don't want to gloss over this. We've spent a lot of time figuring this out. We are launching an e-commerce model for the Nashville Farmers Market next week. This will be a centralized pre-order, prepay, pickup, and delivery app. It will be a contactless experience. It's really trying to catch up farmers markets and our operations to the shifting consumer trend. We're not at all interested in converting all of our sales to online, and we love the gathering and the community spirit that happens at our market. But we have to look forward and ahead, and we have to get creative as our customers change their lifestyles and their shopping patterns. So we're working with an organization that works with over 50 markets throughout the country, and they're going to help us not only roll out this e-commerce, but also an aggregated program and a delivery program. While we roll out their delivery program, we will adapt and expand our services to communities that have been asking us to bring a farmer's market to their neighborhood or to their business place. It will allow us to have all of those orders pre-ordered and create drop zones to those organizations, places, or facilities in the future. We can jump ahead and show a few little things. The next slide, I think, shows you a picture of a sample aggregated local farm box. This will be the second phase of our e-commerce platform, where we will offer an aggregated local farm box from our Nashville Farmers Market vendors. It will be a product listing on our app, and it'll highlight up to 10 different vendors each week that have opted into this program, and allow the customer to support multiple individual farms, and also help us create a new revenue stream as well. And then the last component of it that'll roll out likely mid to late summer will be the delivery model attached to our e-commerce, where it's gig economy based. but people will be able to order by deadline. Their orders will be aggregated, and then drivers will come and pick up, much like an Uber Eats or Postmate works in our community. This is a big trend in the Nashville community to have things delivered directly to your home or to your office. This may not work in more rural communities, but we know that it's in high demand for us. And this is something people have been asking us for years. And we've really stood back on it and said, no, that's not us. That's not what we do. That's not really part of our mission. We want you to come see us at our facility. But now more than ever, we want to make sure that our farmers stay connected with the consumer. And if our consumer is self-isolating, at risk, or sheltering at home, we want to bridge that connection and get them their products and help them support family farms. We've shifted all of our events to virtual events. We've canceled our night market fun activities and all of our seasonal celebrations. We just did our first virtual event with a media partner. We worked with Edible Nashville, which is a local food magazine. They hosted our annual strawberry cake contest on Instagram, calling for recipes and photos and sharing. We're actually announcing the winner later this week. But we're really having to adapt how we create community around our market and celebrate what's in season. We don't want to lose everything that we've worked so hard to build over the last 7 years. And so we're trying to get very creative in maintaining those fun activities and keeping those good vibes up, and also helping our farmers sell their top products that are, that are the big money makers for our farms at our market. And then I think the last couple slides are, about our marketing. We're getting really precise and targeted with our marketing. We've always been really careful there. Again, we're hosting virtual events and contests and workshops. We've developed a slew of digital graphics for our merchants to utilize as they're talking about returning to the market operations. And then, we're working with local media to promote what we're doing, but we're managing it in a way that we're not going full tilt in the beginning, because we want to be really thoughtful about how we manage the first few days of the market. So we're stepping in very slowly with social media, very limited paid advertising, and we've got some live camera crews coming out tomorrow to show off our reopening. But we'll continue to step into that in a more significant way over the course of the next few weeks. The biggest thing that, that we've got to do is we got to make sure that our merchants were ready. So we set up a lot of processes and Zoom calls and forms for them to fill out. And we've had a great response. We've only had 3 merchants out of our 200 plus respond and tell us that they aren't able to return this year because of a health condition or concern about COVID. We're allowing a lot of flexibility for any merchant that might need to delay their reopening. We're not giving away their booths. We're not penalizing them, and we're waiving their rent fees up to 30 days if they need to delay their restart to the market. The next few slides, I believe, if memory serves me correct, talk about, what to do. How are we going to get through this? We really see our mission not just as a retail platform for farmers and artisans and small businesses, but an incubation program for them. And oftentimes, they're kind of stuck in the weeds. So we've been working really hard with each one of them to help them think through their contingency plans, how they pivot and change and then ramp up. And then, how to plan for if there is a next wave. We're not just getting through this one, but what are we going to do if we get shut down again in the fall? And I think that's important for all of us as market managers and directors. And then the next few slides are just resources that we've gleaned from various different places. Whether you've got artists at your market or or you've got restaurants and you need to tap into hospitality funds. We've tried to make sure everybody understands the CARES Act, as well as the various different opportunities that are rolling out from the USDA. So, making this information available to your merchant community is very, very important. I've seen a couple questions come across. They're asking, how many merchants do we have at our market? And we have over 200, we have about 225 merchants that are approved to retail at our market. And that includes 25 restaurants and shops that operate inside and at our garden center. And then the other 200 operate throughout the year, depending upon their product, their availability, and their season in our open air farm sheds. Our open air farm sheds, our rate is $50 per booth on Saturday and $30 per booth any other day of the week. And that is that rate has gone from a seasonal tiered rate to a standardized annual rate this past year. We also offer electricity and water access and on-premises storage of merchandising materials and shop materials for any merchant that retails 3 or more days at our market. And I think my last slide is just supposed to bring you some happiness here. This is hard. I find I'm working until, 9, 10 o'clock every night trying to get ready. I'm having a hard time smiling under my mask, but I'm really trying to help our merchants keep up their positivity, keep our customers help our customers do the same. So I think we have to lead by example. We have to show folks that we're willing to wear the gloves, we're willing to wear the mask, and we're willing to get through these hard decisions and keep a positive attitude. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Tasha. I see Julia had a question about contact information. Here's Tasha, as well as Amy and Casey's email addresses if you'd like to reach out to them, as well as the Tennessee Association of Farmers Markets. You can reach out to them if you have any questions. Amy, if you're on the call, I'd like to ask you to jump in if you'd like to provide a little bit of a different perspective, maybe briefly, if you'd like to, if there are some comments that Tasha made that you noticed that your market is operating differently, maybe just to provide a different angle or a different perspective of maybe some other markets might want to consider those as well.
Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Am I off mute?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are a year-round market. We're outside. We do not have inside restaurants or anything. We have a large market shed that houses about 60 of our vendors. We have 103 year-round vendors. I'm sorry, excuse me. We have 103 peak season vendors. In the winter, we have about 60 that are under the shed. So we started making changes on March 14th. I met with the Franklin mayor and the Franklin Police Department to work on safe ways to stay open. And one of those ways was to remove the artisans from the market. So we made it a strictly food only market. And then when our summer market began, we brought the artisans back, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. But when we were in the March, it was still the winter market. And so we put 6-foot tape down in front of the booths for social distancing for the lines. And then we're going to make those lines, those tape lines, more permanent with Alpha Graphics, our market sponsor, is going to help us with that. We spread vendors out, as I said, out from under the shed. So we have, Tasha referred to our wide aisles. We have about 20-foot aisles for shopping underneath the shed. So there's only 30 vendors under the shed now. And it is a big change for the vendors. You know, they are used to being, they're not used to having tents. We put them all out into the parking lot, and it's been a big change, but we're all working together and everybody's had a really great attitude about it. At the beginning of this, on March 14th, we encouraged pre-orders. We posted the information for farmers who were taking pre-orders, and some of them were even doing home deliveries. And we posted that on our website and our Facebook page. We were encouraging prepayments and limiting cash transactions. That was also a big change for a lot of our vendors who had to come up with Venmo or Square or something, another way to take non-cash money for their services. We do require vendors to wear masks and have sanitizer at each booth. In the beginning, we were encouraging vendors to wear masks, but now it is mandated, and our vendors, we had a market volunteer who made us cloth masks for our vendors. We have some disposable gloves that we hand out. And then I purchased recently some disposable masks that we're going to have at the market information tent for our customers, because we are encouraging our customers to wear masks. We're not mandating our customers just yet, but that might come down the line, I don't know. We have social distancing signs posted throughout the market. We've always had a no pet policy at our market, and we're reiterating that. And so we have our signs that say no pets, and then we have our signs that say social distance, please keep 6 feet apart from each other. We are not allowing food samples or body lotion samples, no sampling at the market. We're encouraging 1 member per household, and we're really discouraging gathering. We are a staff of 2, so we have to go through the market and break people apart. We aren't breaking families apart. So you do see, we'll get comments from customers that say, you know, we saw some people gathering, but if families are coming together, you know, like a mom and a dad, or an elderly couple that's bringing a helper to the market, we're not making them spread apart. We cut our summer hours. Our summer market began at the beginning of May, and normally it's 8 to 1, but we cut our hours to 8 to 12 just so people would stop gathering. So we were noticing that 12 to 1 hour, a lot of people gathered around the food trucks for lunch. And while that was great when we were more of a social market, we're trying to discourage that, and we're asking people to come in and out quickly to get their produce and their proteins and milk and breads. I said we have a no pet policy, and we're telling everybody that we are not a social market during this time, and all of our events have been canceled, which is we're sad to see our events, especially our strawberry festival. And speaking of strawberries, we moved some of our farmers that sell a lot of produce. We moved them out from under the shed just so that they could have the longest lines. And so, you know, when you're putting those 6-foot tape down in front of the booths between each person, and you have 10 people standing, you know, that's 60 feet of a line that you have to have. So we moved some of those more popular farmers out from under the shed. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Amy. Again, anyone, please feel free to type in any questions you may have into the chat box, and either myself, one of the UT specialists, a representative from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, or our guest speakers, Tasha and Amy, would be more than happy to answer your questions. I see Brenda has a couple of questions, or has one question. Are the merchants and vendors providing their own gloves or PPE? And that can be for
we provide at the Franklin Farmers Market. At the Franklin Farmers Market, we provided the mask. We had a market volunteer that made all our vendors masks, and then we also provided the gloves. We are asking our merchants to provide their own hand sanitizer, because, you know, in the beginning it was really hard to find, but now that the hand sanitizer is becoming a little bit more readily available, we provide that at the market information tent.
We're kind of the opposite. We are providing hand sanitizer, including the refills to those. We had a market merchant. We actually had 5 different market merchants that made masks for merchants during our drive-through. They're continuing to make those masks and give them away at no charge to our merchant community. We haven't really had any pushback about people being able to provide their own mask. The biggest issue we've had are gloves. Gloves seem to be the most sensitive subject about whether or not you should wear gloves or you shouldn't wear gloves. And then some people are allergic to certain gloves. And so You know, you heard me talk a little bit in our presentation about how we're recommending gloves, but we're also recommending frequent hand washing and sanitizing if you're not able to wear them. And Monica's asking, are we counting? So since I'm talking, I'm going to let you know, yes, we're counting at our gate. We purchased 6 little digital counters for $10 from Amazon.com. And, you know, you can purchase them. I got mine overnight when I ordered them. They've got a reset button on them, but we're giving them to the folks working our gate so that they can count the number of people in the market at any given time and also keep a total. We've never actually counted the number of people on a daily basis that visit our facilities. So we're using this as a way to also begin gathering that information. So I think it'll be really exciting to see.
I see Nathan Miller with University of Tennessee Food Science Department is on the call. Nathan, if you'd like to add anything related to proper usage of PPE, whether it be gloves or masks, or referring to sanitizing high-touch surfaces, if you'd like to add anything to that, you'd be more than welcome to do so.
Hey, Jared, I think most of it's been pretty much covered from that standpoint. If anybody had any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to address those. But I think most of them where y'all talked about wearing them in high contact surface, you got your doors open. I think Tasha was talking about installing new automatic doors. Those are all things that we would look at if you didn't have those types of things that you would want high touch surfaces. But I think y'all done a pretty good job of covering most of it, but I'd be more than happy to address anything that's specific if somebody had one.
Very good. Thank you, Nathan.
Uh-huh.
One point to consider in terms of handling money, I know that both Tasha and Amy referred to how they're trying to handle money, whether it be contactless payment or otherwise, especially trying to use exact change. If you do have vendors that still would like to collect money and change, we want to encourage them to encourage their customers to have exact change. If your vendors can have 2 participants or 2 vendors at their booth, one person specific to handling money and making the monetary exchange, while the other person only focuses on handling the produce, so that you don't have any additional cross-contamination of germs from money to the produce and back and forth. That would be highly encouraged. We also recommended in a previous Twilight Q&A that if you are receiving cash, be aware that it could have, all cash has germs on it, so there could be a potential for the cash to be carrying the COVID-19 virus, and as such, we recommended, if able, to let your vendors know that they can store that money away at the end of the market for several days, 3 to 5 days, 5 days being better, before they touch it, and then after that period of time, they can then access that money and deposit it how they wish. But it's a good consideration if your vendors are able to have 2 people at that booth that can provide different roles. Dee Dee has a question. How are you sanitizing EBT tokens?
We're dumping our tokens down into our cleaning solution. Anything that we receive at the market gets dumped into a bucket with sanitizing solution at the end of the market. We're doing the same thing you're recommending with cash handling, where we're separating that out, we're sanitizing it, and then it dries at the market overnight. And then the following day, we put it back into, we have a coin, a wood token holder. We put it back in there. We could withstand lengthening our time period now that Nathan is sharing that information. So we'll likely change our process there and let them sit out for 3 days and then sanitize them. But we are still using tokens, and when they come in, we have a bag that the customer can drop their tokens into as they count them, so we don't actually touch them. And then as we distribute tokens, we have tokens pre-bagged in $10 increments in Ziploc bags where we can easily just hand them a Ziploc. You know, it never fails that we need to take a few out or add a few in. So I would just encourage you to look at the average basket size for your EBT tokens and pre-make as many of those to distribute as possible.
Another thing to consider in terms of keeping customers away from vendors, if your market is of a smaller size and you don't necessarily have the capacity to store product behind the vendor or away from the customer, if you have additional tables that you could put 2 tables together and provide product on the back side table and keep the front side table clear, that would also kind of create a barrier to prevent the customers from reaching and handling the products as often, as well as they would maintain a closer to 6 feet or larger distance between the vendors and customers. We encourage that market managers promote their current market practices and how they're planning to operate via social media or email so that you can get your message across to not only your vendors, but also your customers. Communication is going to be very important going forward, so make sure that everyone is on the same page about the processes that are taking place and that no one is kind of caught off guard when they arrive at the market. And Amy and Tasha both touched on that pretty well. If there are no additional questions right now, I would like to invite Grant Pulse with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture's Business Development Center. He has a project coming aboard later this summer that he would like to let everyone know about. So, Grant, I will turn it over to you to make a little more introduction, and I will get your slide pulled up.
All right, Jared, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so if everybody in the audience remembers last year, we ran a promotion during Farmers Market, well, leading up to Farmers Market Week, and we announced it was a photo challenge, and we announced the winners during National Farmers Market Week. This year, we are going to run the promotion from June 1st to July 18th. And all that customers will need to do at your market will need to either follow Pick Tennessee on Facebook or Instagram or then post a photo of their favorite farmers market between the dates June 1st and July 18th. In the comment, in the caption, share why they love their farmers market, and also be sure to tag the farmers market in the post, as well as to use the hashtag #PickTNMarketMemories. The prizes will include the market with the most tags on both Facebook and Instagram will receive a Facebook and Instagram live via PickTN socials during Farmers Market Week, which will be August 2nd through August 8th. And then also for the Farmers Market vendor whose post has the most likes will receive an exclusive video spotlight. And if anybody has any questions, let me know. You can also email me. I'll type it in the chat box for everybody to use, just in case you have questions related to how the promotion will go. But I will be sending out this flyer to all farmers market managers probably next week sometime. But I did want to introduce it to folks today, just so they kind of know that it's going to be happening here shortly.
Very good. Thank you, Grant. let's see. Union County has filthy boxes. Customers who need change deposit cash, and will also use these for token payments. The vendors give change from cash they have brought to the market. It does require that they have more successful vendors bring a lot of change. Certainly, thank you. That is a good consideration as well. Are there any additional questions? If there are no additional questions, I would like to thank everyone for their time this evening, and thank you for joining us for this edition of the Twilight Q&A session to focus on farmers markets and operating during COVID-19. We have been recording this session, and it will be posted online on our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube and our CPA website. So if you would like to go back and watch it or share it with any of your friends or other market vendors or managers, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you and have a great night.